Hey everybody, we're going to do a recap here. This is round 4. We had a rest day yesterday. First recap we'll do is the first game that finished, Jan Nepomniachtchi versus Alireza Firouzja. Let's have a look at the game. They played a very sharp Najdorf Sicilian, and we saw this position in Fabi's game with Duda. Fabi also played f3, e5. And here, Duda played h5, putting it in h. Firouzja played another way, and they went into one of these really long main lines, which we see many games. G4, obviously, if black played h5 earlier, that stops G4. B5, G5, B4. You can take the knight, but it's more common to play knight e2. And now if you play knight h5 to block up the king's side, white has knight to G3, so he played knight e8. And there's hundreds of grandmaster games in these positions. f4, a5, f5, a4. I'm sorry. And in this position, a4 is played in hundreds of games between super GMs. Bishop takes b3 is the second most common move. But Firouzja came prepared today with the move bishop c4. Oops, I went all the way to the end somehow. What a blunder. Okay. With the move bishop c4, this has been played twice in our database, but there's hundreds of games. So basically it's a novelty at the top level. And here there was a long think by Jan. He didn't want to play knight a1 after a later a4. So he played king b1, always play king b1. This way when a4 is played, which it was, he can play the move knight c1 and not have his knight on a silly square like a1. So king b1 makes a lot of sense, defends the a2 pawn. Okay, d5 was played quickly by Alireza. He's still in his preparation. f6. f6 was actually the engine move, so Alireza quickly took. And in this position, the engine wants to ignore the f-pawn and play knight to g3 right away. And probably, since that's the number one engine move, this is part of Alireza's preparation. But Jan just took back, which is also okay. And Alireza seemed perplexed here, like he wasn't expecting that. Now that's the number 2 engine move, and he did prepare this whole line, but maybe he didn't look at this enough. He took with the d knight, which I agree with. I think this knight wants to go to d6 sometimes or defend g7. Knight to g3. And, well, this is the end of Alireza's preparation, and I think Jan's been out of preparation for a few moves. And starting from now till the end of the game, black just gets completely outplayed and makes a lot of subpar moves, suboptimal moves. The engine wants to play king h8 here, getting the king off of the g file, but instead he played bishop f1, always play bishop f1. Rook h takes f1, the correct rook. This rook on d1 is doing a good job. a3, that's the best move. b3 is the best move. Now, once again, the engine wants to play king to h8. The secondary move was queen c7, getting off of this pin. And he did play king h8. And after e takes d5, that was the end of Alireza's good moves. Alireza now made some shockingly bad moves to get a lost position pretty quickly. Although the crowd thought it didn't matter. Alireza's Alireza. He'll fight his way out of the bad position. What? And in this position, he should definitely play queen c7. Hoping to play something like rook d8 or later play knight to d6. But instead he played knight to d6 right away. Frankly, terrible. And just hangs his b-pawn, and he doesn't have good compensation. Now white has 3 connected passed pawns. White's up a pawn. If you remember, 5 moves ago, white was down a pawn. White played f6 sacking a pawn, but now he's ahead a pawn, 5 pawns to 4, and has more passed pawns, and his king is safer. Knight d6 was a really bad blunder. There's not much he can do here to get compensation. He played rook c8, which is another mistake. Bishop b6 is an amazing move. It attacks the queen, but more importantly, it lets the queen go back to e1 later, getting off of this bishop, attacking the e5 pawn, which is very hard to defend. And queen e1 only attacks the pawn because the bishop is no longer on e3. And that's what he did, and white's completely winning here. We can't play e4 and allow the bishop to go to d4. Eventually, white's going to play c4. If you try to defend the pawn, I can attack it again with knight d3. So the engine's already saying completely winning for white. Rook b8 attacking the bishop. The bishop goes to a5. It wants to control this diagonal, so there's no knight ever going to c3. The bishop wants to go to c3. White's up a pawn. White has 3 passed pawns. The d5 pawn's really strong. White's king is safer. White's rook is well placed. His knight's well placed. Just completely winning for white. Knight c4 playing for tricks. d6, excellent move. Now in this position, already on move, what move were we on? 28. Firouzja was down to a minute with no increment. They don't get increment until move 60. So he has to make 12 moves in a minute, and he's completely lost. Obviously, he can't take with the bishop because his knight's hanging. And if you take with the knight, queen takes e5 is just completely crushing. All your knights are attacked and pinned, and bishop c3, and knight e4, and knight h5, and knight f5. Everything's completely winning for white. So he played bishop d8, bishop c3, and this is just black not resigning. Black is completely lost. Thanks, Chaotic Gabibo. Queen e6, knight d3 attacking the pawn again. Knight d5. Knight f4, unnecessary tactic from Jan, but it doesn't matter. Now he's threatening the queen. You can't take because it's illegal. I could try to take, but it's pinned. So he took with the knight. Rook takes. Can't take the rook. Still pinned. f6, never play f6. Queen e2, threatening the knight. The knight escapes. Rook f1. You can't play queen takes d6 because bishop takes e5 is totally crushing, forking and pinning and some other tactical words. Skewering. Rook e8, rook h4. And after f5, there's no reason to sack your rook, but it is, the engine likes it. Rook takes h7, queen h5 check. If you play queen h6, it's not really a rook sacrifice. I can just take the rook on e8, completely winning. So he played king g8, knight takes f5, and white's attack is too strong. White's threatening rook g1 check with just instant checkmate. There's no defense. The engine's already announcing mate. The best engine move is queen f6, hanging the rook with check. That's when you know things haven't worked out in your favor. Instead, he played bishop f6, and he just gets mated. In this position, he resigned. If he plays king f8, there's queen h6 check, king f7, rook g7 check, and queen h8 check, followed by mate. So after rook g1 check, he resigned. So a really nice win from Jan. He didn't do anything wrong. He played basically a perfect game. Firouzja made 3 or 4 mistakes in a very sharp position. Giving up his b pawn was the losing idea, and he thought as long as he could, but he could never find anything good and ended up losing. A very well played game by Nepomniachtchi. Nepomniachtchi winning the game, and now we're awaiting other results from the tournament, and we'll bring those games to you in other recaps here on YouTube. You can also watch live, twitch.tv/GM Benjamin Feingold. Thanks for watching. Bye.